If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in a Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch. Buy our merch indeed, and a child shall lead them to buy our merch, Vin. He'll be coming right along. I don't believe he's going to rescind his score, though. I think that that's where he's put his stake in the ground, and that's where he's staying.
People want me to change my score?
Well, it was a little disappointing to have something that stayed on the top charts for 22 weeks, above the Beatles' 14 weeks.
You beat the Beatles for 14 weeks?
No, the Beatles were up there for 14 weeks with 3 different songs to keep them up at the number 1. He was up there for 22 weeks on this one song alone.
Rescind that score! I always have to be honest. It felt like 9.5 to me. The next song, dear listener,
is Iron and Wine, Beneath the Balcony. Iron and Wine is the stage name of South Carolina native folk artist Sam Beam. He's got a long musical career spanning 9 albums plus a couple of collaboration albums with other folk artists. While his sound has expanded to larger bands and sounds over time, this track comes from one of the earliest releases, the 2003 EP titled The Sea and the Rhythm. This is an intimate, lo-fi bedroom type of recording that I absolutely love. All right.
Okay. Here we go. This should be interesting. Iron
I think
and
that was from Negative Vibes, but I'm
Wine,
not.
Beneath the Balcony. Let's go. Sounds like Iron and Wine.
Let's go out and dance, darling, our last of days. Grace the game with the blindfold on. The cheaters came to play, and outside the soft-handed boys screaming cars and all their speed. Music, math, a hero begging change. The sword across his knees, and oh how he prays to find a man to blame for every sleepless night he spent, and for every well that he won't meet up, wound up falling in, and then for the kids beneath the balcony to disregard the rain to make sure the king won't grant the dead man one more day. prays to find a man to blame. For every loveless night she waits, and for every gun that she frowned upon, but still some fucker named him for the kid beneath the balcony, behind the garbage can, who waits for the king to come and hold his sweaty hand.
Whoa. And this is why I'm very happy I did not give the last song a 10. Because
You think this one's on 10?
I loved this song, and this song is going into my playlist.
What is it about?
So there's that. I absolutely love this song. I cannot tell you how much I love this song. Holy smokes. Go ahead.
I liked the sound of it, but then I got really confused by what we were talking about.
Iron and Wine. What was the name of the song?
Beneath the balcony. Beneath the balcony.
Okay. All right, go ahead. You start off. I'm just adding it to my playlist.
I literally don't know what I don't know what the song is about.
Well, how did it sound? What did you think of it? All that stuff.
I literally said I like the sound of it. It had like a, it did sort of have like a, I think the way that you guys explained it, saying like it had a lo-fi bedroom type feeling to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely really captured how it actually felt. But I didn't know what the song was about, and I thought like it was gonna be like kind of, because it starts out, let's go out and dance, darling, our last of days, and grace the game with a blindfold on. I thought it was like a romantic like love song, but then the cheaters came to play, and outside the soft-handed boys screaming cars and all their speed, music, meth, a hero begging change, his sword across his knee. I was like confused, and then I just kept, each verse that went by I just kept getting more confused until we were talking about, I thought the Blessed Mother, Holy Mother, begging change, Christ across her knee. I was like, what is happening in this song?
Don't you just make up your own meaning
when I'm by myself?
So many like yeah. First of all, I love the way the guy's voice sounds. I just love the sound of the guy's voice. I love when bands sound like that. It's very contemplative. It promotes, for me at least, a lot of like inner reflection. It's kind of like that Nirvana song, "It's okay to eat the fish if they don't have any feet." He's talking about his pets, like he talked about kidnapping these animals and now they're his pets or whatever. Something in the Way. With a kind of it's so weird because there's really no arithmetic to it, because a lot of times if a song like stays exactly at one level playing field, then I'm like, it's too repetitive, I don't like it. But there are certain songs where they just stay in that moody sort of realm, and I just love it. I love that vocal style so much, like you have no idea. I looked at this as like basically people's life stories, and like looking at the end of your life and trying to find some way to eke out happiness, but we're always trying to find groups of people to blame for things that there really is nobody to blame for. Like, not everything bad that happens in the world is actually anybody's fault. Mm-hmm. But you know, people have that propensity to always want to blame somebody for bad things that happen. So let's go out and dance, darling, our last days, and grace the game with a blindfold on. The cheaters came to play. So the game I'm looking at here is the game of life.
Okay.
So let's go out and dance, darling, our last of days. So to me, when he says, and grace the game with a blindfold on, it's, to me, a very pragmatic way of looking at stuff, because there is one sense in which you could say, I'm going through life with a completely clear vision. But there's another aspect where it's like, you know, that's where the whole woke conversation comes from. Like, are you aware? Are you conscious of what's going on? That type of thing. He's saying we're going to go through life blindfolded. So in this universe, like, you could choose to actually see life for what it is and see the world for what it is, or you could choose to be blindfolded. And what he's saying is, I'd rather be blindfolded. I'd rather not see the world for the way that it is.
Interesting.
I'd rather not go through life and see things for what they actually are. Now, I obviously, at this point, do not believe that any of us sees anything for what it actually is. One example, and it's so fascinating, like, I've never been able to, like, get this one simple line out of my head. I think it was Hoffman, I'm pretty sure it was Hoffman and not Castro, but Hoffman said, when you see a child crying, you are not seeing sadness.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is so significant. That the crying represents something. It is not the thing in itself.
Yeah.
It's representing a thing in itself. Then you say, well, what is it representing? Well, it's representing sadness. What is sadness? Impossible to define. Especially in the mind of a 1.5-year-old, you know. And obviously, you know, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, is the kid sad or is he just frustrated? Either way, it doesn't matter. The crying, the tears, the physical things that I can touch and observe, none of those things are the thing that it represents. And if you really dwell on that thought, just that thought alone, that has, to some degrees, terrifying implications as to what the hell are we actually. So he's saying, grace the game with a blindfold on. The cheaters came to play. That looks to me like he's talking about there are other people who know what life is like, know what life is about, know how ruthless it is, and those people are able to game the system.
Okay.
So, you know, like, people talk about, like, ignorance is bliss. So it's like, I'm going to walk through life blindfolded, dancing, playing this game, because I'll at least have the bliss of not knowing how corrupt everything is. You have other people that are like, actually, no, I want to see where the corruption is so that I can repeat and be a corrupt person myself. I want to find out what the algorithm is so I can figure out how to cheat the system. So there are different ways of choosing to look at the world. We're only going to be here for a while. Why try to figure everything out? Let's just try to be as happy as we could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And wherever we end up, we'll take the blindfold off afterward. That's really interesting, because if the metaphor is true, that the blindfold is representing we just want to go through life ignorant, then that means that death is when the blindfold comes off, right? Where you truly see it. And you hear people when their DMT experiences and all this other stuff where they feel like, I'm finally seeing reality for the first time.
Yep.
It's a very interesting conversation. You know that Kurt Jaimungal guy, that Indian dude? He had a 2-hour conversation with Jordan Peterson.
He did? Just
now about God, and I'll check it out later. Huh. But that just has such a crazy thing. So, okay, so cheaters came to play, and outside the soft-handed boys, screaming cars in all their speed, music meth, a hero begging change, his sword across his knees. This, to me, is just like the society of people in between that spectrum. You got one group of people who are going through life blindfolded. You got another group of people who are going through life completely well aware, and their job is to just corrupt everything because they want to cheat the system and win. And in between that, you have soft-handed boys, which I'm assuming are the author's assumption of gay dudes. Screaming cars in all their speed, which to me is technology and all that. Music meth, a hero begging change his sword across his knees. That to me would be, you know, an ex-war guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, the Marines, like the whole motif of the Marine, and he's got the sword and all that. Now here he is, he's a hero, but here he is on the street begging for, you know. And so it's like,
I hate that.
Here it goes. Like, this is somebody.
Oh, a hero begging change for, money? Yeah, I thought it was a change for something to be different.
Yeah, it says music, meth, a hero begging change. So it's you know, what you would see outside on the street, you know, the bum on the street, and he's got his little thing and he's playing. And how he prays to find a man to blame. So this guy, what he wants to do is find somebody to blame for his predicament, not necessarily get out of his predicament.
Yep.
He wants to find somebody to blame for his predicament, which is one of the reasons why you have to be extremely careful when you're advocating for marginalized people.
Yep.
That you don't become this sort of paternalistic or maternalistic sort of icon where you're coming down from on high to rescue these poor people for themselves, and then there are always perpetual victims, and there's always perpetual villains. And I don't care about the moral value of whether or not a person is truly a victim or truly a villain in our culture, because that comes with a different moral weight. Like, the victim is sort of like the highest moral statute that you can currently have right now as a person in the Western world. Victim is the highest status you could have. So I don't want that. That's why now Trump is portraying himself as a victim of FBI, and he very well maybe, I don't. But the point is, it both groups in our country. I'm bifurcating America, but both groups in this country have a victim mentality and then mock the other side for having the same victim mentality, because they're like, no, we're the real victims. And what that does is it doesn't really bring you solutions. It just gives you the sort of moral high ground to say, you're the victimized person, but it doesn't translate to solutions.
Yeah.
So this guy's in a bad social. This is one of the things where I said, like, the left needs to grow up a little bit. You see somebody in a bad social situation, getting them government assistance may not necessarily be the best thing long term for that group of people. If you look at what happened, let's say, to the black community in the 90s, you had the Biden sort of situation where it's like, we're sending all these black men to jail, and when you have all these black men in jail, you got these black women with kids, and so then there was like this welfare system, et cetera, and it is known, you look at any sort of black identitarian literature in the late 80s, early 90s, even in the early 2000s, you would see that this was a major issue where, at a meta level, black women were essentially projecting this sort of you don't need a man type of thing. It just completely destroyed the black family, and to this day, the shrapnel is still there. I mean, I'm not going to get into all but my point is, all the social help that flooded in the ghettos in the black community after the Biden crime bill went into effect, essentially sort of put black women in a sort of concubinage relationship with the government, who is, usually the white male is the archetype of the government, right? So it sort of created this very uncomfortable situation where the black guy was a loser, he's in prison, not able to accumulate wealth or education. Black woman's outside, but she's getting all this help from Bill Clinton.
Oh my God.
I don't know if people remember this, but there was a giant love affair between black women and Bill Clinton. And so Farrakhan, even Jesse Jack, all of them were talking about this stuff.
Really?
In the early 90s, even into the 2000s, because it had a massively horrible effect on the black community. Like I said, we're still dealing with it to this very moment.
And it's not like anybody was like rolling in the dough. It was just consistent.
Right.
It was a little bit of money consistently given.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm saying, like, with the left, like, you have to be careful in this whole blame culture, victim culture situation. Granted, there are legitimate victims and legitimate villains, and there are reparative things that need to be done to address that. But you gotta have some sort of empowerment structure on top of that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're never going to get the person a solution. All they're going to be is they're just going to be finding the person to blame for every sleepless night and all the rest of it. Every well that he warned me of, bound up, log file. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always somebody else to blame. Mm-hmm. Like, you can blame your parents, bro. Like, your parents are, your parents screwed up. Especially if you're young and you don't have any kids, then awesome, blame your parents, because you can never be held to the same standards because you don't have any kids. So you can judge your parents. You could say they're the reason that your life is on the track that it's on right now. You could blame the government. You could blame white people. And like I said, your parents, anytime you have a power dynamic among human beings, and there is a power dynamic between parents and children. That's why when the power dynamic begins to even out, guess what? It's time for you to leave. So, but in any human sort of society, anytime you have a power imbalance, then you're gonna get situations where the people in power abuse that power or use it wrongly. And so, okay, if you're a minority in America, then you can go after white people as if there's something like uniquely wrong with white people. No, there's a power dynamic. They're the most populous group of people in the most powerful nation in the world. Okay, so what are the odds that as a collective they're going to use that power only good all the time? Ridiculous. If we were in the majority, we'd be doing the same thing. So that's where I think we really need to create a sort of secular doctrine of original sin.
Yeah.
Right? Because that will help you sort of take the edge off the victim mentality. It's like, yes, you were victimized by the system, by society, by law enforcement, whatever. Yup. And you would have done the same thing had you been in that position of power. So what can you do to get some more power to make that equivalent, so that now we have this sort of mutual assured destruction, so now the police can treat us nice. Like, that's what Malcolm X was, right? So Malcolm X is going out talking about any means necessary, blah, blah, blah. All he was talking about was mutual assured destruction.
Right.
So, like, it's just stuff like that where it's like, we just have to mature as to what we're trying to accomplish for what group of people.
Yep.
Like, okay, we've identified who the oppressors in a given society are. Okay, how do we get those people to live a new way, and how do you get oppressed people to have some sort of self-identity outside of the identity of being an oppressed person? Like, that's a very, very sophisticated ask, and to do that and multiply it by tens of millions of people is going to be a hell of a job.
Yeah.
So good luck to whoever has it. But anyway, that's what the song meant to me. There was just so many applications to this song, and that's why I like that it wasn't fast and it wasn't loud, and because it like really made me think about all the things that happen in life, the archetypes of people. You've got the blindfolded fool. And if they get 75 spins around this planet and they enjoyed themselves for 68 of it, meanwhile you have the informed person that's not blindfolded through life, and they're miserable for 88% of their life, and they lived the same 75 years, who had the better life. Is seeing reality for what it actually is that much more valuable than being happy? That's an interesting question.
It is, because the other thing is you don't even know if the reality is what it is. So, for instance, when you talk about like projections and materialism and how, what if things aren't as they seem? Like, let's say that at the end of all of this, it's like a video game, and all of us at the end pop up on the other side, and we have learned our lessons from what we did.
Right.
Then, all that stress, all that frustration, then, but did the person that walked around in ignorant bliss learn the lessons necessary that they needed to learn? There's got to be a balance between the two. It can't be ignorant bliss, and it can't be,
Well, here's the thing. He's saying ignorant bliss, right? But at the same time, he's doing it with some other lady. So I'm actually going to argue that the blindfolded guy had a more successful life than the guy that saw reality for what it is. I'm going to argue that and here's why. Because of the fact that on some very basic core issues, all of us agree we don't see reality for what it is anyway. Mm-hmm. Right? So we are not evolved to see reality as it is. We're evolved to operate in a structure of fitness payoffs.
Yep.
So if I see a cliff, but the cliff is an extremely complex grouping of all of these virtual lines and ropes or whatever that really aren't there. Mm-hmm. But let's say they're there visually, but they're not there physically, such that if you stepped on it, you would think that you're walking on something, but you would really crash to it. Okay. If, let's say that that's reality.
Okay.
If that was reality, then that reality would work against my survival, because it would make me think, oh, I could walk over this thing. So what does evolution do, or God do, whatever you want to say? It shuts off that mechanism of seeing those other things, so that all you see is a drop off. Mm-hmm. So you go, I'm not going over there. So the point is, if you saw reality for what it was anyway, you wouldn't be able to survive. And all of us know that that we're not, like, when we see the sun rising, we know that that's a hallucination. We know that that's not true. When we say sit in your seat to our children and don't move, we know that technically that's a lie, because the kid is moving around with the planet. Mm-hmm. He is moving. If we say that the earth is flat when the Bible talks about the four corners of the earth, all of us know that, yeah, we see the earth as that, but it's really not that. So my point is, we don't see reality for what it is anyway. Mm-hmm. So why is it so important to see the metaphysical realities for what they were, instead of just being happy with another person? If you could find another person to love, why do you need to see all the horrible things that are going on in the world? Like, why do you need to be conscious of that? Like, I feel like kids in our generation were a lot happier than kids in this generation, and part of it is because kids in this generation are aware of more bullshit. Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
I'm not certain that seeing everything. Now, what would I choose? 10 times out of 10 times, I want to be like how I am.
You want to be informed.
I want to be the way that I am.
I don't.
Which is to be informed.
I don't want to be so informed.
I want to know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even though I'm thinking the other guy is happier and a more successful person, I'd still want to know. That's just me.
I don't want to feel the heaviness of everything all the time. Like, there's just too much. And, like, I'm okay with heaviness that's combined with joy. Like that story of that woman, and she ended up, basically she was a runner, and she got pregnant, and I think she was being sponsored by Nike. And she had to hide her pregnancy, and they basically told her, look, just stay in your lane and run. In other words, you should abort your baby. And, of course, she, made the decision to keep her child. I guess I don't know why I'm saying of course, but that's the decision that she made. She kept her child, and in the end, she ended up creating her own shoes, and now does her own sponsorship stuff. Like, so it, like, created something. I mean, I do wish her shoes were not, they're very expensive. I was like, well, I think you should have thought a little bit about the whole picture. 2 lines of shoes, maybe, something. Because I think that there's a lot of people that are inspired by her story, and the people that are inspired by her story are not necessarily the rich. And so I think that if she would have made some a little bit more affordable, she would have gotten more support in the long run for what she's doing. But I like stuff like that. Like, like that was a sad thing. Like, that's really sad that a woman has to even be in a situation where her sponsorship is going to get pulled away because she's pregnant, and that someone would even have the audacity to tell a woman that she should stay in her lane. In other words, get rid of her child and just keep running. Like, that's all she's there for. That's her sole reason for existing. Just ridiculous. So stuff like that, where you're going to kind of mix the joy and pain together, I'm good with that. But like, just like pain on top of pain on top of pain, I'm like, no.
I love Emily. It's the ignorant people who are still miserable that irritate the fuck out of me. Right. If you're gonna be ignorant, people savages. Em's a savage. If you're gonna be miserable, if you're gonna be ignorant, then at least be happy. Damn it.
Right.
At least be an informed. Be an informed misery machine. All right. 9.8. I love this song, and I'm sorry I loved it more than I loved the Armstrong song.
Ridiculous.
I'm sorry.
That's so ridiculous. 9.1.
Really, really, really good song. 9.8. Really, really good song. All right, dear listener. Don't look now, but we still have more music on the freaking way. Vin and Sori, Americana stream by DJ Negative Vibes and Middle Earth. Check us out. Be there, be square. We're gone.